Hello, Professor Aruninta. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the technician from THEi. Would you like to test your PowerPoint before the lecture?
It's okay. The signal from my side is not really good, but I try again.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Because I was kicked out from.
Yeah, I see, I see.
Hi.
Hello, hello. I can see you again.
What happened? Looks good.
Oh.
But it seems like the
You're not
signal
moving.
today. The
You're
signal
not
today.
moving. Oh, you're moving now. Yes, yes.
I think the signal today is not very good. So I'm not sure what happened.
Have you given us your PowerPoint? Yes, you have. I've put it up on the.
Yeah.
But
so
the
we have it
problem
already.
is
So in case.
the problem is I will disappear. I mean, not only the slide, but myself.
Okay.
It's freezing. Somehow I will, I think I can manage it.
Okay. If anything happens, we have your PowerPoint.
Okay.
So let us know and we can always do it here. Okay.
But otherwise, I will also disappear. So you have to explain the slide by yourself.
Okay, let us know. Well, I mean, time really flies. Today it's already the fifth day of the workshop, which is actually the last day of our lecture series. So we have two more interesting lectures coming up. So basically they're all today. And right now we begin with Narm. And I believe Professor Ariya needs no introduction, but I'll give an intro anyway. Okay, Professor Ariya is a faculty at the Department of Landscape Architecture, Faculty of Architecture, Chulalongkorn University. And maybe some of you might know, she is actually one of the co-founders of our workshop, IWUL program, since 2010. But Narm started her career in 1986 as a project landscape architect for Rama Park Foundation. And then after she graduated from University of Colorado at Denver, she actually came back to join the Public Works Department in Thailand as a landscape architect. And she is an ex-administrative committee of Chulalongkorn University Social Research Institute. Her research interests are very diverse in urban landscape, urban management, healthy landscape, as well as biophilia. She has received support as a visiting scholar under several international fellowship programs, including Fulbright, JICA, Science Pro, and the Royal Dutch Government. In 2007, Professor Ariya has been appointed by the Prime Minister of Thailand to be one of the 5 honorable board members of Thailand's Councils of Architects, and has represented Thailand in IFLA, International Federation of Landscape Architects Delegate. And Dr. Ariya was actually the chair of 2011 IFLA, Asia Pacific Regional Congress, an international congress in landscape architecture, and she represented the Thai Association of Landscape Architects in the IFLA. And she also has numerous publications, and she's the author of Landscape Architectural Design and Construction Technology. It's a co-publication at the Chulalongkorn University Press. And today, Narm's talk will be on blue infrastructure and living with water. Okay, you still there?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
right. It
ready.
seems like the network is better.
Okay, hopefully.
So,
Today I have about 36 slides to explain to you.
okay.
Yes. The presentation objective, because I am one of the tutors of group number 5, but actually I would like to be in group number 1 or group number 2 about the water. So this presentation can contribute to both group number 1 and number 2, and perhaps can evoke many people, including landscape architects, to understand the dynamics of the nature, especially the water, the river, and the canal. And in order to live with that in any circumstance in terms of resilience, the river dynamic is known as the pulse, the same as our heart pulse, and it has influenced the way of life of who live by the river and the community, especially the cultural landscape, agriculture. So in order to understand the dynamic of water, you have to know that the pulse is different in terms of hourly. It can be different hourly, yearly, or it depends on the lunar to the moon, and also monthly, or even yearly, or even more than that. So this is part of my recent research that I work on the wetland of the Bangkok River, which was our 2020 IWUL workshop. The river, the Bangkok River, has many scientific measurement stations along the river because it's part of one of the 26 watershed in Thailand. So in every watershed, we have an organization that take care and look after and measurement the dynamic of the water. So in this slide, you can see that the difference on the distal solid or solid particle in the river, and the salinity and the electroconductivity. So this chart depend on the time, the same time. So you can see the relationship between the distal solid, the solidity, and the electric conductivity. That if it's high, if one of these high, so the other thing is higher also. And the next one is the slide show the difference of other indicators, the measurement from the same river, the same time, and also the oxygen, the temperature, and also the pH or the acidity of the water. So you can see that the higher the temperature, the higher the pH. But sometimes the higher the temperature, the lower the pH. So it's some kind of diverse and contradicts to each other. But the oxygen, you can see that it's very similar to the pH. So from this chart and the earlier chart, so you can see that this one go along together. The higher the solid, distal solid, the higher solidity and the higher electric conductivity. But this one, you can see some difference. So I think this is a good start on understanding the different nature of the river. So what is the pH? So you can understand that when you talk about the water in the river, it's not only about neutral water. Neutral water can be pure water, But if the pH is different, it can be acid and it can be base. So it depends very much on the quality of the water. And this chart compare the different acidity of different things. This is another thing that I think is the dynamic of the water in every day. So including the salinity of the water that you can see from that chart, we can see also the tides. So in one day, for example, this April 12, Tuesday of 2016. So this is the time 1 o'clock, 0 o'clock or midnight until midnight again. So the height of the tide different from time to time, and even and the tide also influence to the salinity. This station is the station that we measure the salinity, and this is the Gulf of Thailand, and this is the mouth of the river. So we can see that the longer the distance from the mouth of the river, the salinity will be high. This is the station. The black one is this one, and the lower one until the end of the mouth. Sorry.
We cannot see the mouse.
Sorry.
Yeah, we cannot see a mouse.
I can explain by color. The black one is this the one near the mouth of the river, and the lower one is the one farther from the mouth of the river. So from this assumption, we can say that the closer to the mouth of the river and closer to the Gulf of Thailand, which is the sea, the salinity will be high. So in this one, the dynamic between the day, starting from the x-axis mean the day, and the y-axis mean the salinity of the water. So you can see that during July, this is July, the month of July. So you can see the day, the 3rd of July until the 30th of July, 2021. So I would like to know, I ask question to myself, when it's going to be the acceptable salinity waters in Bang Bakong River. So I make the estimation of the number, the salinity is below the red line, which is around 1 milligram per liter. It will be acceptable for the salinity of water. But you can see that at the beginning of July, which is the end of summer already, but the quality of the water, the salinity is not acceptable. It's very high, especially the one near the mouth of the river. But as time go by until the mid of July, so around 15th of July to 23rd of July, the salinity of the waters at the station, at the measurement station, lower and lower until the 24th of July. The salinity of the water is acceptable below 1 milligram per liter. So this is another important information about the dynamic of the river. It's related to the moon. This is already known by all the people living along the river area, but maybe as a landscape architect or as a student or as a professor who working on the blue infrastructure or even the engineer, they are not familiar with this dynamic, and the structure become very hard. I mean, it's not flexible and it's not resilient and dealing with this dynamics of the water. For example, during the half moon and during the full moon or during the dark moon, the depth of the water is different. It can be explained with the spring tide and the neap tide also. The difference of the spring tide means the difference is larger and the neap tide is closer. What happened to the moon? This is the sign of the moon and astronomy. So maybe we study at very young student, and we know about the waning moon and the waxing moon. So this is which. So the waxing moon is when you see the full moon at the full moon day, and then waning moon, it means it's a dark moon and you won't see the moon at night. So sometimes you see the moon in the morning and in the late afternoon. And what happened to the moon? So the moon will influence the tide, as I already explained in the daily tide, but this one also affects to the spring and the neap tide. So in the full moon is the one with the white one. So you can see the red arrow, and you can see that the level of the wave, the depth of the tide is totally far from each other. So it's some kind of springtime. But in the half moon, the depth of in the middle, the depth of the water is not much different. Can you explain with that astronomy? So during the springtime, the moon and the sun are in the same way. So the gravities of the they have the gravity power to attract the water. So the tide will be very high. So and different. I mean, when the moon moves to another place in the day, during the day, and the moon go to another place, so the water will be down. So the difference between the depth of water are different. But during the neap tide, it means the moon and the sun are in the different angle. They are perpendicular to each other. So the gravity who attract the water are in different way. So the depth of the water is not much different. So how about the yearly dynamics? The yearly dynamics mean season. when we talk about the seasonal change, which is one approach of the dynamic or adaptive landscape, the seasonal change means in Thailand we have 3 seasons: summer, rainy, and winter, which is not very cold. But we can say that the different cause different kind of dynamics. For example, the temperatures, and the temperature and the sun also affect to the agriculture, and also including of the water, the number of water. Rainy season, the amount of water is very high. So the culture and the wisdom of the people, they understand the nature, the dynamic of the nature. So they create the festival. They have the art and handicraft, and also many activities that relate to the season. And you know, the season change create the beauty of the nature, because we can see, for example, in your country, you can see the autumn, you can see the spring. So the difference of the autumn without the leaf, or in winter with the white of the snow, white color of the snow, that all different beauty of the nature. In Thailand, even though we don't have that much difference, but you can see the difference of the amount of the water. This is the season. The color of in the year calendar, you will see the difference of the season. We have we start with the winter in January, and then summer, and then winter, no, rainy, and then go back to winter again in December. So the amount of the temperature is not much different on the top graph, but the lower is the amount of the rain. So you can see that in the mid of in this one is August. In the mid of August is the highest amount of the rainwater. This is the beauty of the national park, the waterfall. I brought it to this slide because I saw you have the waterfall, but I'm not sure how much the difference between the dry season and the rainy season. And another one is another waterfall from my student thesis. So you can see that in the dry season, you can use the area of the waterfall as the hiking trail. And in the rainy season, you can enjoy the water. And this is another one. This is the thesis of one of our students last year, that she played with the tobacco factory that it involves also the tobacco farming. So in each year, the quality of the tobacco and also other agriculture in the same area related to the rain, related to the temperature. For example, during the winter, it's the best time for tobacco, but it's the harvest time of the rice farming. And after that, without any agriculture in the dry season, they use that to manufacture the tobacco, and they sell the rice production from their rice field. So this is the calendar that related to the dynamics of the nature, including the ecosystem. The ecosystem is also very dynamic and related to the seasonal change. For example, the difference of the ecosystem also involved in the landscape morphology. What is the landscape morphology? The landscape morphology is how the land changes according to the ecological system. For example, at the mouth of the river and the mouth of the wetland, the area near the sea, you can see the wetland, and that area can be create landscape of the aquaculture. In upper level, in the estuarine and maybe in the rainy season, it's not very salty water, but in the dry season, the salinity of the water is high. So in the brackish water, sometimes it's good for fruit orchards. So usually in Thailand, in the eastern part of Thailand and in the south part of Thailand, that facing the sea, a little bit far from the sea, far from the aquaculture area, they plant the fruit. So the fruit and the farming also related to the quality of the water, and perhaps higher salinity of the water is better for fruit. And in the upper part of the area, in the delta, near the upper delta of the basin, the river basin, it's good for rice production, especially in the central part of Thailand. The landscape morphology can explain in this kind of scientific or statistic chart, but actually it's related to the contour and the level of the water and the difference of the landscape morphology. And how people adapt to the season. This is in the same place. The size of 2020 IWUL. So you can see that in the dry season, they use the area to become a shell and the fish and the crab pond, the crab farming, the shrimp farming, and the bird come in, create a very nice wetland for the bird. But in the rainy season, when the salinity of the water is low, so they plant the rice. And this rice is organic. Why? Because the salinity of the water is not good for the taste, for the insect. So the insect disappear, so they don't have to use other things, and including the fertilizer. They use very low chemical fertilizer because the flood and the storm drain create a very nice humus to the soil and good for rice farming. So we call this the hybrid farming. So in Thai, it's Nakawan. What happened to other dynamics, including both man-made and natural dynamics? So what happened to the footprint of the built-up area? So this also happened to many places like in Bangkok, in Thailand, and also in other places around the world. Kokfuram area with our project site also influenced by this human dynamics because of the urbanization, because of the change of the land use. It also change and cause the dynamic of the land. So what happened? If you study about the storm runoff and also about the water table that Sylvia mentioned on the second day about the well and the village in the hilly area like Popular. So we can say that in the storm, in the rainy season, especially in the rural area and compared with the urban area, urbanized area, the runoff and also the infiltration. I mean, when the water, the rain fall, and then some part of the water will infiltrate into the ground. So the higher of the built-up area, the less infiltrate to the area. And also there is another phenomenon about evapotranspiration. Evapotranspiration is the combination of evaporate from any kind of surface. But the most important thing is about transpiration. Transpiration is some kind of water from the tree, from the plant. So evapotranspiration is highly related to the forest and to the planting area. So the more plants, the less built up area create a higher evapotranspiration. So I think this is also very important and landscape architects have to understand. So what happened? This is also about the rain intensity. If you get the rain, the millimeters of the amount of the rain, so you can multiply with the area, and then you will get we call rational method or runoff method. Q equals THEi. So what is the T? T is the runoff coefficient which related to the surface of the water. So from the theory, as I told you, that the less build up and the less build up with plant will create more infiltration. So the runoff is slower. But if the surface is paved, so the coefficient is high, and then the runoff will be more. So this is why we have to understand the rate, and sometimes it's not only related to the climate change, but it's related to the built-up area and also urbanization in order to cause the higher flood in your area. So what happened to other things? Sylvia mentioned about what the NGO in the site talking about the well. And the well is also dynamic. The level of the water, the contaminated of the water, the intrusion of the salt water into the water table, and even what Sylvia told me is about the weight of the reservoir, which caused also the impact to the water table that feeds the water to the well. So these are the things that underground. So nobody see the difference, and as a landscape architect, we have to understand and we have to make in the design consideration. What else? In one of the groups, we talk about the calendars. And I mentioned at the beginning of the slide about the festival and the local wisdom. Usually, the people who originally live by the river, they take that at the beginning of their founded the settlement that they have to live by the water because the water is good for their life. They can use the water for agriculture, for farming, for dairy, for the cattle or something. So the water is life. Usually Thai people live by the water because water is our transportation network. It's the playground, it's also the bathroom, and they use everything from the water, include agriculture. So water is always alive, but sometimes we forget about that, and we use the only the one function of the water. Like for example, in Falkland, they use only for drainage and sewer drainage. So I think this is one that we can change, we can transform, and then we can add other functions of the water. This one is also the function of the water. In Thai agriculture, you know that most part of the delta area that is good for fruit orchards, the salinity of the water if before the rainy season is very important. So they leave some salt on the soil. So in order to treat that, to have the proper, salinity water is good for fruit, but sometimes it's too much. So how we going to create the landform? And this is the landform that came from agro wisdom from the people who are the farmers, food orchard farmers. So they know how to create the landform that reduce the salinity of the soil. And this is how Thai people live with water and use the ditch as the irrigation canal for the fruit orchard, especially coconut. We have a very nice coconut trees, and also to get rid of the salt from the soil. So this is another understanding, the best understanding of the local wisdom. And as we have the farmer and we have the fruit orchard, Thai wisdom also create a very nice place for food production and food production. So in this one, we call it an activity we call gastronomy or culinary tourism. What is this? This is a new trend in Thailand. It to make use of the agro wisdom, edible forest as a tourist attraction. So when people come to visit this place, not only see how the local people plant the coconut, but they can eat the production of the coconut from the farm, directly, freshly from the farm. And this is also part of the astronomy of culinary tourism in Bang Patong area because of the different kind of water and brackish water and fresh water and three types of water in the same area in different part of the year. So we have all kind of food, including shell, fish, shrimp, and also the production from this is the production up here. This is the production of the palm tree. And also salt water is good for chicken and duck because this one create a very nice laid egg. So the salt water make the later the more laid egg yolk. So how the designer, the planner, and the engineer dealing with the water nowadays. So these two photos gave us the very strong, very significant conclusion. So on the left-hand side, you can see that many buildings, modern buildings, some of the structure, they try to fence the water, and they try to use only the view of the river as their settlement. But you know, on the another part of life, on the right hand, this is how Thai people live by the water. They just setting their house on the field, and when the flood came in, they can live on the upper floor. And in the dry season, they can enjoy the view and in the different level of the water. Even they can access to the water very easily. Sometimes they have their own boat and then use the water as the transportation. But on another hand, it's not possible to make the access to the water. It's very difficult. I mean, you can jump from this height, but it's very difficult. So this is how I make another comparison between the two things. The first thing is how you manage the river corridor naturally, and how you understand and how you make the different understanding of the nature. And you can see that in the higher flood, sometimes they create another area with the wetland. And when the flow come in into the dry season, they have the primitive plant that grow up at the border between the land and the water. So this is very nice natural ecosystem along the river. And what happened to another picture below? The picture here is how the engineer, how the people who ignore the dynamic of the water design, I quote, design of the riverbank. So you can see that very similar to flood. So they create a very high flood wall, and then they make use of the cross section of the between the flood wall, and they use that to contain water. But compared to the upper one, the higher flood flow can flow to other green area that usable in the dry season, but in the rainy season, they can use that for flood retention. So it's totally different. And you can make the calculation how much the difference in the amount of water. I am sure that it's different. And this is the example that I gave to you the day before yesterday about the Bishan Ang Hill Park, which is the award winning of 2016 ASLA Professional Award. This is very good example to explain how the landscape architect to negotiate with the engineer in order to compromise the water management between each two functions. So usually landscape architects deal with the ecosystem, deal with the green area, and in Singapore the same thing. They divided the organization into the blue one. The blue one is public utility board who take care of the amount of flood water. And another one is the green organization. The green organization and the blue organization work together. But in the old days, before the Bishan Angmo Kio Park, the public utility board only control the maximum width of 24 meters, and the rest will belong to the National Park Board, the green one. But after the Bishan Angmo Kio Park has proposed, there are the overlappings of the blue and the blue and the green one. So they share the space, and the public utility board can get more space for water in the rainy season. At the same time, the National Park Board lost that space during the rainy season, but in the dry season, in the summer, they gain the space into the national public utility board and get more green space. So this caused a very nice view in the summer season, and also very good land utilization as a flood protection measure in the rainy season. Actually, I go to slide number 34. And after that, I will make the conclusion and then go for question and answer. So this chart, this diagram is my most favorite one. Why? I think it reflects a very good metaphor of our role of landscape architects. The first one is ecological approach. What is that? It's the landscape architect who design only for the human. For example, design only for the life of the water, the better quality of life of people only. I mean, only. So I call that the ecological approach, because you put the people, the human, on the top of everything. You can destroy some animal, you can destroy some nature, like a plant. You remove the plant because you want the space, more space for people. But look to another side. We call ecological approach. What is that? So we live together. We live in the holistic way of approach, that we can eat some animal for our food, and some animal can eat other animals in a circle. And this is create a nice balance, very democratic, very holistic, and sustainable. In the opposite of the other one is the authoritarian, like a war. So one will fight and govern another, and it's unsustainable, that of course, and imbalances. So I think that one is seeking for power, but this one is ecological one is more independent, and they also depend to each other. For the conclusion, I'm not sure whether I can explain everything about the dynamic of the nature, the blue infrastructure, but I would like to add some comment that the water that you are nearby, the water next to your house, the water inside the project IWUL have different conversation to you. So I think in order to make the implication of living with flood and dry in the design process should involve into understanding of and aware of the dynamic of the nature, the ability of the landscape architects who can adapt themselves and adapt the design process to mitigate and remediate for the more sustainable and resilient is very important. So I urge you, the student, and maybe in the future when you become a landscape architect, you should do this kind of thing and then understand the dynamic of the nature and add that to the design strategy. So what I call is the adaptive landscape. What is the adaptive landscape? Adaptive landscape is something to integrate the bioengineering, not the hard structure engineering. And because the local wisdom and the community also know more about the dynamic of the nature, so you should adapt your landscape design not to be the ecological approach, but you have to rely very much on the nature. We have to live together with other people, and to balance that, the less educated people, it doesn't mean they have no wisdom. In opposite, sometimes the community with less education in landscape architecture than you, but they have some kind of local wisdom. We can ask them about what happened in your village. Like for example, this time, we always call the NGO inside the village because they know many things about the dynamic of the nature, include the well, include the some of the structure, the flood level, and so on. So we have to adapt that, and we can add that if sometimes the community already forgot about how to live with the water because it was neglected for a long time. Traditional local wisdom is not only the thing that you put in the calendar, that, oh, we have this festival, but we have to understand what the relationship between that festival to the agriculture, to the farming, to the thing around the environment, the ecosystem, what happened and what related to the season. So this is very important also. So how to the traditional, especially the last one is especially in Thailand. So sometimes the engineer and the landscape architect have not understood about the relationship and how the local people accustom themselves with the riverfront and develop the way of life. The same as in the slide that I show the flow and the fence of design of the structure nearby the river, along the river. So usually the wisdom of the people who settle their life along the river, they have the way of living That's very special in the West, but then and they wisely utilize the dry and the wet season accordingly. So this is all my slides, I think. So that's all. This
Thank you.
photo I made by myself. I use the Photoshop and then I use the water and I use the dry water.
Yeah,
together.
it's very extreme. Oh, I see. Thank you.
So don't find that from Pinterest or Google. It's from myself. From
If we
myself.
find it, it's yours. We know it's yours. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Nam. Yes, I think I really appreciate the fact that you speak about green, blue infrastructure. Yesterday was green, today is blue infrastructure from the beginning, because I think we forget a lot that that actually our water system begins with the tide created by the moon. So basically the moon is the one that actually creates our tides, and that the wind is the one that creates the waves in our sea. I think these are things that we always forget, that we take for granted. So I think we need to sometimes look back to the source. So any comments or questions from the floor? Okay, hang on a minute.
Because yesterday there was a group that talked about the rehabilitation of the canal. That I said the width of the canal is the same, but you only decorate with plants and to maybe to absorb some water and to make better ecological system in the dry season. But you know, in the rainy season, the amount of water will be different. So I gave you the example of the Angmo Park, and maybe I haven't explained very well because I don't have the photos. But you can check the website from the ASLA 2016 Professional Award. And then
I
you
think
can
some of
understand.
our year 3 students, they actually know about the Bishan
Bishan.
Park. Yeah, because they did study that in their last studio.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's especially with your slide, you showed the before and after, and that's very powerful, and how it really created a new biodiversity in that area, and it really accomplishes your last chart where it's eco-centric and not egocentric, because the human is becoming part of that nature, because we can be next to the tide, and when there's a flash flood, they actually have an alarm so that people will be alerted to go back to higher ground in the Bishan Park. So they really build in everything and very well thought out. Yeah, it's a very great example. And I also appreciate the diagram you had on the water table, because we were speaking about that a few days ago, about how the water table works from a high level to the level below, and how the well it's actually intercepted. So basically, all these things are, like you say, is the wisdom from the people in the past,
Yeah.
because they really know where to puncture the ground. I mean, they didn't have any computer, they didn't have anything, but they knew there is this water source. And so they dig down, and eventually they found the water and get to pump it out. And that was the main water source for that village.
Mhm.
So ingenious.
Yeah. But we always forget about that in our design, and we usually sometimes we keep that at our memory And we know that it is the well, but we don't understand the reason behind that. So I think it's very important in order to create, especially the program like in the workshop, because this is very creative and nice initiation of the proposing of the strategic planning of the thing. So what you going to do with the well? How you going to respect the local wisdom in the old days? And can you explain the relationship between the well, the silo, and the farming?
Okay, Yato has a
Yeah. Not really the questions, but just very impressive by Professor Nams. Especially there's one photo I very impressed with. That's one photo at the right side, the people building their houses above the river, and then this the other side, the people just building their house, but blocking by a high wall. They try to block they try to block the river, but they just want to take the advantage of the good view. They're not really trying to live with the water, but in the other, back to the old day, we do know how to live with the water. And then back to our side, like Buffalo village, I find out it's kind of similar problem they have right now, because they just increase the wall of the drainage higher and higher, but not really embrace that flooding. But back to the old time, the flooding actually is quite important to the agricultural life. We need that flooding to kind of so you bring out the nutrition to our land. So I think that's quite good key point that we can think about, not really just blocking the flooding, but how to live with it. And because there's really
and you know that solution won't create protection. When the flood came in, after you rise up the wall, so the flood will increase.
yes.
Not you cannot protect that.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially you continue walk, build the wall along the whole river, so the flood will be more severe.
Yeah, that's why our old topic talking about the resilient. How can we make this Buffalo village more resilient rather than just blocking the problems away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, very appreciate about your view. Thank you.
So you that Pro and Friends picture, you can find more of the photos in my papers. I put the link
Oh, okay.
into the PDF.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I have just I don't have questions, but I have some comments, and that's very informative and interesting lectures. And I think it's kind of remind us that even during the flood, there's a lot of water, but there also most of the time there's no flood, and we can use the space, because when the student working on it, we kind of focus on the event of the flooding. So most of the picture that we use is like water everywhere, but it's actually dry most of the year and most of the time. So we can utilize that and remember that the blue infrastructure or the water system is dynamic. So we kind of have to adjust our design or our proposal to understand that system. Thank you.
So the objective of have this presentation. Please, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right.